As the name implies, Lies of P Overture is a prequel to the original 2023 Souls-like, shedding light on the events that led to the Puppet Frenzy Massacre and subsequent collapse of the city of Krat. At its beating mechanical heart, however, Lies of P's first DLC expansion is a tale of personal tragedy and vengeance.
I'm not sure what's going on, but we better check things out.
While developer NeoWiz hasn't implemented drastic changes to the game's underlying mechanics in Overture, its storytelling has improved, further building on the atmospheric Bellapoke-infused world it created as a much darker and more twisted spin on Carlo Coletti's adventures of Pinocchio. Most unfortunately, in the lives of puppets, there is always a but that spoils everything, is a popular quote attributed to the Italian author. In the case of Overture, this is, fortunately, not the case. Rather than being a conventional prequel, Overture sees Geppetto's eponymous puppet travel back in time alongside his faithful companion, Gemini. You can access the DLC from Chapter 9 by heading to the path of the Pilgrim Stargazer, but it feels like post-game content in terms of difficulty, providing a sterner test than the base game's final act. After emerging in a snowy forest on the outskirts of Krat, you're challenged almost immediately by a giant, petrified polar bear with a torture cage wrapped around its head. There is no sort of onboarding process if you've been away for a while, but with a moveset combining charges, grab attacks, and rhythmic combos, this angry carnivore is perfect for relearning your parry and dodging skills on the fly. After the initial confusion surrounding how you ended up in the past, you're eventually hot on the wheels of the legendary Stalker, a mysterious figure who acts as a guide through Krat's final days of grandeur. At roughly 15 hours in length, there's less time to dabble, so Overture's pacing is tight, with the story's circumstances providing a sense of urgency and momentum. There's still intrigue and mystery, but it never drags and remains compelling throughout, even if you could make the argument that too much of the narrative is told through optional notes. While these letters, personal musings, and final words are well written, it's the evocative imagery that stands out, particularly the macabre exhibitions staged by the game's villain with the corpses he leaves behind. These scenes are horrific, yet they're also morbidly beautiful in a way, a juxtaposition I haven't seen since Brian Fuller's excellent Hannibal series was on the air. Like that show, where its paintings of death were inspired by artwork from the likes of Gabriel Matsu, Damien Hirst, and Sandro Botticelli, it wouldn't surprise me if NeoWiz was also influenced by specific paintings or artists when crafting these haunting spectacles. Mixed in some other moments of environmental storytelling, and Overture does a terrific job of building tension and creating a terrifying sense of unease that permeates its primary villain. The art design throughout the rest of the DLC is mostly on par with these lurid scenes as you explore other parts of Krat's crumbling outskirts. While you've never been here before, the snow blanketing everything and tumbling from the sky elicits a sense of nostalgia and childlike wonder, which is quite the mood change for Lies of P. Couple this with the inherent dangers lurking around every corner, and it's another of Overture's fascinating contrasts. The first location you visit after clearing the woods even feeds into this as you come face to face with the violent chaos of Krat Zoo. Between the frenzied puppets and mutilated carcasses of giraffes and other wildlife, there are the animals being kept alive by the petrification disease. From an elephant with a crocodile's head bursting out of its dome to drop-kicking kangaroos and vicious apes, these new foes pack a punch and are incredibly satisfying to fight. The same is true throughout the rest of Overture, whether you're squaring off against robotic circus clowns and strongmen, or stabbing a petrified swordfish with no qualms about leaping from the water to fight you on land. Then there are the excellent boss fights, such as Marchiona, Puppeteer of Death, a humanoid enemy who fights with a puppet tethered to her at all times. While the Souls-like genre has often struggled to strike the right balance when it comes to multi-opponent boss fights, see Lies of P's own Black Rabbit Brotherhood, Marchiona is a shining example of how to nail it. When her marionette is about to attack, for instance, the tether tying them together flashes orange, giving you a chance to dodge or parry the incoming attack even if the puppet isn't in view. The pair never completely overwhelms you either, with Marchiona focusing on ranged projectiles while the marionette opts for melee attacks. It's still a tough battle, but like most of Lies of P's boss fights, it never feels unfair, even when the numbers are stacked against you. When it comes to exploring these new locations, Overture mostly maintains the same high bar of quality as the base game. NeoWiz's level design remains intricate, presenting semi-open levels with multiple paths and areas that test your skills and strategy with varied combat encounters. You'll navigate across canopy bridges hanging above zoo enclosures, fight through a fairground with a functional Ferris wheel and carousel, and traverse broken ships lodged in thick ice as the green glow of the northern lights looms overhead. These environments are visually splendid, as well as being interesting spaces to explore, often telling tragic stories in between moments of action. The only misstep is an underground prison and laboratory that's operated by Krat's nefarious ruling class, the Alchemists. With tiled walls empty and scattered gurneys, and large tanks containing a luminous liquid and floating test subjects, it's a generic and fairly bland location that's been done many times before. The level design is still engaging, but it lacks the character that distinguishes Lies of P's environmental design elsewhere. Fortunately, even in an area like this, Overture introduces some new weapons and Legion arms to inject more variety into your arsenal, even if the underlying gameplay mechanics remain relatively unchanged. The first is a bow that lets you keep your distance during fights by peppering your foes with consecutive arrows. It also has a charge shot that can interrupt an enemy's actions, and it feels pretty balanced, even with unlimited ammo, because it still takes a couple of charged shots to down a regular enemy. The bow might be more of a complementary weapon, but it's a fun new addition that fills a notable gap for dedicated ranged arms. Elsewhere, you can get your hands on what are essentially Wolverine's claws, letting you quickly rip enemies apart, and there's a gunblade that wouldn't look out of place in Squall Leonhardt's hands. The addition of 2 easier difficulty modes for the rest of the game is a more significant part of the free update. The default and hardest difficulty is now known as Legendary Stalker, while Awakened Puppet and Butterfly's Guidance both make the experience easier to varying degrees. The description for these difficulty settings are a little misleading though. Butterfly's Guidance is described as a very easy difficulty for players who want a story-focused experience. It could be because Overture is harder anyway, but after struggling against a boss for a while, I tried the other difficulty modes, and while even the lowest is definitely easier, it's still not a walk in the park. You hit harder and take less damage, but it's not the kind of breezy experience you might expect when you see the words very easy and story focused. Nevertheless, this is a positive move that should open up Lies of P's to a broader audience, which is always a good thing. It's also not a bad thing that Lies of P Overture is essentially more of the same. The base game is arguably the best Souls-like to come out of a studio not named From Software since the genre took off. However, I would imagine it's less than ideal for anyone who's recently finished Lies of P for the first time. For people like me, who haven't touched it since it launched in September 2023, I was more than happy to dedicate another 15 hours to more of the same. Overture is a beginning that caps off a fantastic game.